TV funny man Bob Saget has died.
Actor and comedian Bob Saget has been found dead in a Ritz-Carlton hotel room in Orlando, Florida. A call sent out to police of an unresponsive man in the hotel room. Detectives found no signs of foul play or drug use. The Full House actor and America's Funniest Home Video host was 65 years old.
That's Fox's John Scott. Also, Dwayne Hickman, the actor remembered for his TV role as Dobie Gillis, has died. He was 87. Hickman died of complications from Parkinson's on Sunday at his home in Los Angeles. Hickman was also a network TV executive. Democrats hoping to revive the president's Build Back Better plan may be disappointed by this Washington Post story.
This report details that the week before Christmas, Senator Manchin counter-offered the president's Build Back Better agenda with a $1.8 trillion alternative. But that offer has now been revoked. Citing unnamed sources, the Washington Post described this, quote, White House allies, including several officials in the White House itself, have in recent days expressed confusion as to how the administration could pass up on the potential for a $1.8 trillion deal that would amount to one of the most significant pieces of domestic policy in decades. This report came out days after Manchin said publicly that there are now no negotiations taking place. The West Virginia senator had been a longtime moderate holdout on the president's massive social safety net and climate action bill.
That's Fox's Alexandria Hoff. Spider-Man continues to scale the heights at the movie box office.
In its fourth weekend, Spider-Man No Way Home tops the box office.
This isn't my fault. I can't save everyone.
The Sony Marvel film adding another $33 million in ticket sales and now ranks as the sixth highest grossing domestic film.
That's Fox's Kathleen Maloney. Stock markets mixed in Asia. Shanghai, Hong Kong advanced. Seoul and Sydney declined. Japanese markets were closed for a holiday. I'm Sal Gianfrasso, and this is Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Happy day. This is Clara Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck, zero down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. At least not so long as I've got anything to say about it. And by gosh, I've been saying a lot about it for a long time, and I ain't going to stop. All right, another week. We're at the beginning of another week of Tall Tales. I couldn't be happier. We got 5 whole days ahead of us of Tall Tales, speaking with the international radio listening audience of tailgaters out there all over the world, talking about discussing extremely interesting subjects, handling some of the most intelligent folks at least in the Northern Hemisphere, and telephone calls. Yeah, I got it made. It couldn't be any better, no matter what. So let's go straight to Zemi Ikotny. Yeah, and I forgot to mention, not only is it Monday, it's Red Shirt Monday. I'm wearing one of my 2 red shirts today. I've got some orange shirts in my closet, but I won't wear those on Red Shirt Monday. Jose said I would never wear a red shirt because of my dedication to the country of Ireland, right, Jose?
You would never, ever wear an orange shirt.
No matter what. You would never catch me in an orange shirt. Don't let your eyes deceive you.
Not even in Syracuse.
The Orange Men, right? In Syracuse, yeah. Okay, so Zemi Ikotny, my bilingual play on words. Zemi Ikotny translates literally to press the meat. I turn it around so that it becomes meet the press. And it really bothers Chuck Todd because he knows that my meet the press is so much better than his. I examine the editorials in both of our daily newspapers. I mercilessly criticize the grammar, English usage, and theoretical base of the editorial. Having found one better than the other, I will occasionally give that editorial the Blue Star, which is highly prized. It's almost like the local equivalent of the Pulitzer Prize. It's so prized here amongst local newspapers. The fact that one editorial is better than the other doesn't necessarily mean that it gets the Blue Star. We have extremely high standards here on Tall Tales. The Blue Star never goes by default. So not only must the editorial be better than the other editorial, it must meet my very high standards. Starting out with Daily News, which is not in contention for the Blue Star today. Our view, Guam behavioral health needs assistance soon. Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness, which used to be called mental health, but we've cleaned that up quite a bit, right? It's not mental health anymore, it's behavioral health.
I mean, it's all the same services, but you know.
Yeah, but which sounds better, Department of Mental Health and Social Service, or substance abuse, mental health and substance abuse, or behavioral health and wellness? Which of the two would be more politically correct? Yeah.
Number 2.
In both senses of the word. Anyhow, mental health took over responsibilities held previously by Oasis Empowerment Center. Oasis discontinued inpatient recovery for women with alcohol and drug addiction. Oasis has quite a place for people that are alcoholics, right? You used to think about wandering around in the dryness of the desert looking for an oasis, which is another way to spell bar, I think. The reason Oasis backed down is because of vaccine mandate issues. It also developed a mobile app to prevent bullying, fights, and self-harm in schools. Mental health assumption of these responsibilities are to be applauded, but for them to take on more, the agency needs help. This is what's called mission creep. I once upon worked in a government job with a person who had a pretty clearly defined mission, but that wasn't good enough for them. They would gradually pull in, start up some other initiative that really wasn't part of the mission, get it up, get it running, get some good PR for it, and then say, I need a bigger budget. I need more help. Because now I'm not only doing 1 and 2, I'm doing 3. I get 3 rolling, and the next thing is 4. Though mental health is receiving help from Lighthouse Recovery, according to Director Teresa Areola, the agency needs more social workers and volunteers to assist in the new responsibility. One option would be to reach out to the university. Is this Friday's editorial or today's? I'm just going to put it aside. It's hardly worth going through.
The only thing I want to point out, which you got to give them a little bit, just a little teensy bit for saying that the staffing issue is over vaccine mandate issues, because they really don't need all these people. They have them. They just don't want to let them work.
Because of the vaccine issues.
They were heroes in 2020, but in 2021, not so much.
Yeah. If you're not vaccinated, we used to talk about Jim Crow, the N-word and things like that. That's been kind of replaced by colonizer.
It's soft bullying, but
Yeah, but now the non-vaccinated, man, talk about it. This guy over, his father is a non-vaccinated colonizer. Ooh, man, that's about as low as you could get.
But didn't you see all the people he saved from the burning building? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, nice try, but, you got to be vaccinated. There's no excuse. Okay, the Post did itself pretty well today. Here's what the Post said. With millions more on the way, population, not politics, should guide pandemic funds for villages. Well, as the situation has developed, they're right, but there's a better answer than that I'll get to in the context of this editorial. More often than not, issues are more complicated than black and white. But 11 mayors and 1 vice mayor made a bad policy choice last week when dividing up a near $900,000 windfall among the island's 19 villages. The dozen members of the Mayor's Council voted to split the money funded through federal pandemic legislation and meant to cover the budget shortfall evenly among their offices. Evenly. Well, that's fair, Jose. I don't want to see any small. That's fair. Split it up even, right?
But is that equitable?
That's a really important question. Controversy surrounded the decision even among the members of the Mayor's Council. Following nearly an hour of heated debate, there was still a near even split in the vote. On one side was the proposal to give each village just shy of $47,000 regardless of population. Now, which of the villages do you suppose supported that one? That would have been Dadido, Tamuning, Jigo, right? And the ones that would have been adamantly opposed to it, that would have been Humatak, Malesu, Analan. Yeah, right. On the other side was a prorated amount based on villages' overall population, participation in the SNAP program, and road mileage. At a very basic level, giving equal shares to villages could make sense to some. Fair is fair, after all. But the logical fallacy tied up in distributing the same amount to every village is the assumption that all villages are equal, when they're clearly not. Obviously, Jigo is better than any of the others. That's where I live. As noted by Sinatnya Mayor Robert Hoffman, there are vast differences between large and small municipalities. Vast differences. The larger ones are bigger than the smaller ones. That's the vast difference, right? Based on the 2020 census and 2006 data, Dadido, the island's most populous village, has 44,908 residents, 13,828 of whom rely on SNAP. And the village has 189.29 miles of roads, some of which is actually maintained. Not much. Humatak, the island's least populated village, has 647 residents, 312 of whom rely on SNAP, and a total of 5.97 miles of road. Yeah, if you drive through Humatak, it doesn't even seem like there's that much. Following the MCOG vote, all villages, including the aforementioned pair, will receive $46,954.15, which translates to $104 for every resident of Dedido and $72.56 for every resident of Humatak. Expect a mass migration from Dedido to Humatak. These two examples alone, though on extreme ends of the spectrum, should make it clear enough for everyone to see, including the 12 mayors and vice mayors who voted against different funding levels, that not all villages have the same needs. Some require more road work than others simply because they have more roads. Others require more resources because they have more clients who will need to be seen on a daily basis. The comparison also shows other, perhaps more telling data points should determine how much funding villages can require, since Humatak clearly has a greater need for some welfare programs than Dedido based on respective utilization rates of benefits such as SNAP. Some of our mayors already admitted the difference in workload among village offices, despite their support for equal portions of this $892,129 budgetary bailout. During the same week, he voted to receive the same amount as a larger village, PD Mayor Jesse Alec.
Not so smart, Alec.
The president of the MCOG lamented the volume of legwork and other tasks facing highly populated villages, mired in a delaying reopening of the Senior Citizen Center. No! It's a logical nightmare for most of us. For those of you who actually have to call, we don't have that many people in PD to call for senior meals. But those of you, I can't imagine what Dedido and Jigo have to deal with. Mangilo and Barrigada, Alex said. Technically, during the same meeting in which he voted to receive the same budgetary bailout as Dedido, Jigo, Mangilo, and Barrigada. No! Well, yeah, I said, the larger villages are a lot harder and they have a lot more to do, et cetera, et cetera. But it's different now because it's my village. Yeah. That was then. This is now.
It's like asking kids what time they want to go to bed. They're just not responsible enough to answer that question.
And that's going to be my point when I finish up this editorial. Considering the rest of the list of those who voted for uniform subsidies, Agana Heights, Asan Maina, Chalanpago Ordet, Hagat, Humatak, Inilahan, Maleso, Mongmong Toto Mighty, Santa Rita, Sumai, and Jonia, it's understandable that some felt walking away with the highest subsidy possible and the fairest one was a motivation. Do you really think so? Do you think that's what the motivation? Yeah, So, no, Estige na villages na Agana Heights, Asan Maina, Santodo na ilist, Gostungo in Afamalik.
It's only fair.
They're really into Afamalik. We asked these 12 villages to reconsider their positions and urge them to think about what's best for an entire island, not just the communities within their own municipal boundaries when considering how to portion federal pandemic aid. This is especially important because a lot more money is coming down the pike. The remainder of an $8 million portion of American rescue plans and another $9 million after that. When the result of fair share allocations is one villager getting $1 of aid, while another gets $72, our mayors aren't engaging in good governance. They're playing politics. I'm going to use a word that I don't ordinarily allow here on the program. Greed. Of course he's rich. He's so greedy. No, it's of course he's rich. He's talented. He works hard. He's been very successful. It's got nothing to do with greed. But it's hard not to say that the most important principle here in this divvy up of the money is greed. Okay. Now, there was an article in the Post. Mayors squabble over funding before voting to give $46,000 for each village, big or small. Hagana Mayor John Cruz and Diego Vice Mayor Loreto Leones and Talofofo Mayor Vicente Taitigui were absent and therefore didn't vote. That shows, real dedication to duty also. 12 mayors voted in favor. Let's see here. Now, here's Molesu, Mayor Ernest Chargaloff, the metropolis of How many suburbs does Molesu have?
Including the dock?
Yeah, I think there's North Molesu, South Molesu, East Molesu, Cocos Island, right?
You can see them all from one spot.
Really? Molesu Mayor Ernest Chargaloff was the most vocal among mayors, wanting equal distribution of funds regardless of village size and population. Before the voting, he raised the concern that the biggest village with a mayor and vice mayor would have 2 votes to the detriment of small villages, citing Baker versus Carr, the one-man, one-vote Supreme Court decision for authority for his proposition. It's just not fair. Those guys get 2 votes. The fact that they've got 100 times more people than we do, forget it. The Molesu mayor also said, while others see option 2 or the equal amount distribution as hurting the bigger villages, he said smaller villages are also affected. Now, he's come up with a very solid legal point here. Very persuasive and very solid. When you get a chance, you can go to some place like Fine Law, Jose, and look up the case law in this. Here is Mayor Ernest Chargaloff's rule of law. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. That's my point, he said. The guy's got a mind like a steel trap.
Somebody's getting goosed.
He kind of laid an egg on that one, didn't he? Yeah, I got to add that into Vanessa Williams, Steve, and the governor, right? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. That's my point. Mayor's Council Vice President Robert Hoffman, Mayor of Senatnia, shared data that he offered the mayors to ponder when deciding the distribution of funds. Delido, for example, has the largest population, 44,108, based on the 2020 census, etc. Molesu, which has a population of 1,641, of which 586 are on SNAP, and with 9.41 miles of road, also gets the same amount as the big villages, Delido, Jigo, or Barrigada. However, although Molesu may be small, its mayor has the biggest mouth. So it kind of works out. The MCOG voting process, which lasted about an hour, came after an executive session on Wednesday. Now, what do they got to discuss in an executive session? Whatever it is, it's illegal. So I suspect that this vote is void.
It's a personnel matter.
Yeah, for violating the open government law. Let's see. The MCOG voting process, which came after an executive session on Wednesday, followed by a full day of review of the 3 options. That's a nice, polite way of saying arguing, right? And exchanging of insults. So here's the fallacy in this whole deal, okay? So the statute gave the money to the mayor's council to distribute. What is the mayor's council? Well, the mayor's council is all the mayors and vice mayors of the island. What are the duties, power, and authority of the mayor's council? And it's a little bit long, but I'll read the whole paragraph. It's at 5 GCA 40105. There is established a mayor's council comprised of all mayors and vice mayors. And it talks about the officers, etc. The council shall adopt its own rules and bylaws, provided that such rules and bylaws do not impede, restrict, or in any way limit the authority of each mayor within his district. Such rules and bylaws may be amended or revised from time to time upon a vote of 2/3 of the membership of the council. A quorum of the council should consist of not less than 60% of the members, and no action of the council shall be effective unless it shall be adopted by a majority of the membership. That's it. What are their duties? What are the authority of the mayor's council? Nothing. You know, they can adopt rules, they can elect officers, they can let Angel Sablon take time off to go down and testify at Jesse Bloss's sentencing hearing for crimes he committed as a mayor. But the whole thing is a zero. It's a nothing burger. It's a nullity. The mayor's council has no authority. So I would at least tentatively assume arguendo that they can't even divide up these funds because they don't have the authority to do that, to allocate funds, to do anything. Now, later on, it says they can assign 2 employees to each of the villages upon request. But that's about it. So what a useless organization it is. You reform-minded people who want to run for senator start out by saying, first thing I'm going to do is repeal 5 GCA 40105. We don't need no stinking mayor's council. The only local government officials we have are mayors. There's no need for them to sit around and act like a quasi-legislature, adopting resolutions, fighting over money, etc. This is really bad government, and it's so far from my ideal, which, as you'll recall, is an effective, efficient government operating within the rule of law, providing at least ordinary government services on a break-even basis. That's what I'm looking for. This is not it. It's obviously turned into a debating society.
Does federal funding allow for this kind of distribution? This method of distribution?
Well, you remember there was some teeth gnashing because part of the federal funding was to go to counties and other subordinate units. Well, we don't have any subordinate units, so it was decided that mayors could come in under that rubric. The mayor's council, I suspect nobody even thought about it. Yeah. Well, everybody knows that the mayors do this in the mayor's council. Everybody knows that nobody reads the statute and finds out that the mayor's council is nothing, nothing but a debating society. So another really sad day for our government. Okay, I'm about ready for the card here. We got to take a short break, but we've got a caller here who wants to make a mark on the mayor's vote, and so we'll cruise back to him right after the break.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point. Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY. And now back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. One radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, Errol, so here we are. Mark, before I turn the microphone over to you, I'm just going to tell you that you really got a hard row to hoe here, because when Ernest Turgeloff came along with that propositional law, in my mind, it's almost irrefutable. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. So you take a crack at it.
I'm not even going to approach
his level of genius.
His level of genius and his take on it. But it has nothing to do with that. It was all the one man, one vote thing. And I always was confused on how people would throw that out. But then when you take the two houses of Congress, you got the House of Representatives, which, 1/4 of them are from California, because California is one of the biggest populous states. And then when you go to the Senate, they only have 2 senators. So, it kind of is a little bit in conflict of the whole one man, one vote thing, if you ask me, depending on, how they distribute the votes. But yeah, it's just, this is a very interesting can of worms you've opened up with the actual founding law of the Mayor's Council, and I'm curious as to how they're going to respond to you.
I have a feeling that they'll draw up some kind of analogy dealing with fowl. A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
Or to make it really easy, they could just take Melvin Wonpat's press release and just put Mayor's Council on the top of it and send it to you.
Exactly. Yeah. Or they could just do nothing and borrow a couple wheelbarrows full of paper mache from Melvin and turn themselves into a paper mache commission, like the Commission on Decolonization.
Well, I am officially, just saying it's my thought. I mean, the villages that have the larger population should get more. I mean, it's just the way it is. But, once you get the smaller villages in line with each other, then the larger villages, even though they got 4 votes, it's not going to work.
Well, of course, you have to lay the blame for this kerfuffle at the feet of our governor, because our governor could very easily have said, here's the distribution of this money, and done it on a pro rata basis based on the numbers that we're familiar with. Now, if she had done that, then the Ernie Chardeloffs of the mayors would say, she cheated us. She doesn't know anything at all about geese and ganders. What the hell is she doing there? So the key word here, Mark, in politics is cover. And what?
Yeah, and the governor had cover because she needs the mayors to get reelected. So it makes sense. It makes sense.
So by tossing it to the mayors, no matter how it turns out, she's got cover, because she could say, I gave it to the Mayor's Council. If you don't like what they did, it's not my fault. It's the Mayor's Council. And the search for cover leads to some really crappy results in government. But it's always there.
Well, she's got a lot on her plate. So I think this was one of those low-hanging fruits that she just passed along. So, I mean, it is what it is, and we just have to live with it unless it gets corrected somehow.
Yeah, well, I think the way to correct it would be, as I said, some outsider that wants to run for the legislature, who doesn't want to do the same old thing and hope that somehow it'll work, ought to make one of his campaign platforms reforming this whole mayor situation, because it really doesn't work at all. Our mayor can't keep the roads clean. Not too long ago they said, we can't clean up the school grounds. It's not our job. It's just been it's a boondoggle from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, let's hope that. Well, the thing is, if someone's going to run on that platform, they're definitely not going to have the mayor's support. They're going to have an uphill battle from there trying to get elected.
Yeah, but you know, I once upon a time, up until the mid '80s, there were more government employees than there were private sector employees. Now there are 3 times more people in the private sector than work for government. So I think that a properly developed campaign that would campaign against the government could be successful. But you know,
yeah, but all those
politics,
but all those private. Okay, sorry about that, Bob. Go ahead.
Yeah, politics here most often involves newcomers waiting until they file their papers and then figure, well, I guess I had to start some kind of a campaign. I'm going to borrow my neighbor's 1972 playbook and follow it to the letter, and you know, maybe it'll work for me. I hope so, and it doesn't work. But go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. No, well, but the other problem is even though the private sector is a lot more has a lot more people in it working, everybody's related to somebody in the government, and they've got their family members saying, "Oh, please vote for this person or please vote for that person." So once you get that government employee who who wants certain people to get reelected, you kind of lean that way, and you know it's kind of whatever, I'll give them my vote, whatever kind of thing. And I always vote for the new people on the Republican side.
You know, back in that 1972 playbook, what you said was correct, because there would be a senior member in each of the families, and he would let the word go out, hey, Capilis are voting for X, Y, and Z. And it was, you know, it wasn't enforceable, but it carried a lot of weight. That's not the way it works nowadays, because like everybody has a relative in the government, everybody has a relative in the private sector also. So the key to being a successful, one of the keys to being a successful candidate is to develop some name recognition and credibility, and then work very hard on your message, which is the 2 or 3 things that you want people to understand about your approach to the office should you be elected. Because as a general principle, a credible person who gets his message out, and a message that resonates with the public, got a really good chance of getting elected, instead of going back to the old ways. I remember a guy who ran, I guess it was 4 elections ago, and he asked me for my advice, and I said, well, what are you going to do? What is your plan? He said, well, I'm going to have my friends set up meetings in every village from Humatek to Jigo, and I'm going to go up and speak at all those meetings. And I said, that's great, except you're only going to be speaking to people that vote for you anyhow. You need other people. And that's how you get elected, not by relying on the old connections and the old processes, et cetera. Unless you're a legacy candidate. If you change your name to Juan Pat, maybe it'll work for you. But if your name is Klitzkie, it darn sure wouldn't work for you.
Oh, well, yes, it would if your name was Robert Klitzkie, because, yeah, I mean, everybody wants you to run again. You just don't want to.
Well, I'm talking about the first time I ran. The first time I ran, the smart money said, hey, Bob, you're wasting your time. You know, you don't have a large family. Your wife doesn't have a large family. You're this, that. It's tomorrow. How diablo? You don't have a chance. Well, I screwed up somehow and finished 10th anyhow.
and you basically wrote all your own laws.
I did.
All your own bills. Yeah, you didn't have to pay somebody, $60,000 to write your bills and be your chief of staff. You had the most austere office in the history of the legislature.
I did not have a manservant, a maidservant, a footman, a chauffeur, somebody to answer the phone, all of that stuff. So, but that's what I mean by, one of the things that an outsider, a challenger, who's not a legacy candidate, who's not part of the political system, you're looking for people who don't know what can't be done. These are the people that may very well be successful. Anyhow.
Well, it's cross our fingers for the next election, and hopefully, we get some new blood in the legislature and they stir things up.
Very good. Thanks, Mark. I'm waiting for you to file your papers.
I can't afford the cut and pay.
Okay, understood. So long. Now, that's a good remark, but if Mark could meet a couple of times a year for 30 days, right, preferably late in the afternoon and at night, perhaps he could go into panic overtime a couple times a year, keep his job, do the job, be a good senator, etc. But as it is, unless you're going to devote all your time to it, you're going to have a hard time being successful unless you're a lawyer. Randy Cunliffe was an effective senator as he carried on a full practice of law. But lawyers, it's kind of like going into surgery. You don't have to look for the forceps. All you have to do is stick your hand out and say forceps, and someone slaps it in your hand, right? Okay, let's see what we got on the card for this afternoon on Red Shirt Monday. I start out with Paul Zerzan and systemic racism. That's why I wore my red shirt. If you happen to think that it's orange, you just aren't checked out. I got to do something with this. Make this sign a little more. Yeah. Okay, there it is. Red. The letters are orange. The word is red. The narrative is the word. The actual colors of the letter is the truth. And we're living in an era where the truth doesn't mean much of anything. It's the narrative that really counts. And Paul showed us that when he had the brass to say that the food that we ate at a fiesta is not red but orange. And here's what the Daily News came back and blasted him with after he wrote his letter to the editor. The Daily News said, readers to Zerzan, leave our red rice alone. Stick with the narrative, Zerzan. Don't confuse us with the facts. Okay, so the next thing on the card after systemic racism is orange versus red. And then I've got the governor versus reality, every child versus GFT. Now, if there are any dentists out there in the audience, make sure you hang on for every child versus GFT, because proper dentition is going to be the subject of that item on the card. Dr. Friedman versus illness. Friedman is going to, once again, I expect some mail coming back blasting Dr. Friedman because he looked at something that was orange and said, hey, this is orange. It's not red.
I kind of like it.
Yeah, me too. And then on the national scene, we've got diversity, inclusion, and equity versus equality. And we're going to wind up with tall tales versus separatists. Regardless of whether we get to that or not, we're going to play Hope Cristobal's screen test right after the seventh inning stretch. So we're going to go from Wrigley Field to Hollywood to catch Hope Cristobal's screen test. If you haven't seen it before, I'm not going to tell you you'll enjoy it. It'll be enlightening, however. First item on the card, orange versus red. And this is something I got out of the Western Journal, a good conservative website. Left completely ignores 2021's top killer that caused 12 times as many deaths as COVID. 12 times more deaths than COVID. Democrats and their media lapdogs are cranking up the coronavirus fear-mongering again while ignoring the fact that abortion, not COVID-19, was the world's leading cause of death in 2021. Leading cause of death. There were 42.6 million abortion deaths worldwide last year, compared with 3.5 million deaths attributed to corona. The pro-life organization cited statistics, that's Life News, compiled by Worldometer, a nonpartisan data crunching website. In 2021, abortion topped deaths from cancer, car accidents and suicide by a wide margin, according to Worldometer. The World Health Organization said cardiovascular diseases are number one cause of death globally, killing an estimated 17.9 million people in 2019. But that ranking doesn't take into account the lives lost to abortion. With 58.7 million people dying last year from cause other than abortion, that means abortions accounted for 42% of every death around the world last year, Life News reported. And when compared to COVID, the number of people dying from abortions dwarfs the number of COVID deaths. There is a debate over the accuracy of corona death counts amid reports that they've been inflated. There is a debate. I got a cartoon in the email from Tom Poole. It was a gentleman in a doctor's office with an arrow sticking right through his head. And the doctor said, it may be that you died because you were shot in the head with an arrow, but I've got to do a COVID test anyhow. Where's Andrew Camacho and his test when we really need him, right? Even assuming the reported total is accurate, abortion is 12 times more deadly than coronavirus. Yet we've seen a leftist outcry about the virus deaths and none about those lost abortions. Why? Unborn babies are not recognized as human beings, even though biology, let's follow the science here, indicates they are unique living beings from the moment of conception, and they die brutal, violent deaths in abortions, Life News said. What's shocking is that Democrats and their establishment media partners rapidly support abortion, despite its disparate impact on Black Americans. This hypocrisy is telling because liberals routinely attack anything that has a proportionately negative impact on blacks. That's why leftists support Black Lives Matter's destructive, quote, defund the police frenzy. They claim policing is racist because enforcing the law has resulted in many Black Americans getting arrested and jailed. Similarly, Democrat-run New York is prioritizing Black residents when it comes to distributing Wuhan virus tests, and treatments to remedy alleged systemic racism. So the narrative there then is, well, the 42.6 million people that died because of abortion don't count. Now, we have a really good statement of the narrative. I'm going to ask Jose to read the immortal words of attorney Vanessa Williams, if you can, Jose.
This was said on March 5th of 2021. It is impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives.
Vanessa Williams. Yes.
Vanessa Williams.
So there's a narrative. So you have an abundance of choices in your life, whether to go to college, whether to go on vacation, whether to buy a new car, where to eat dinner, whether you really need that new sound system, etc., have a child. But they're all what's the legal word I'm looking for? In pari materia. They're all the same thing. Yeah, so whether or not you go on vacation or have a child, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Yeah. It's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. Yeah, words to live by. I wonder if she knows anything about geese and ganders. Okay. Next on the card, I've got the governor versus reality. And this, you got to get out your Law and Order notebooks for this one. I'm going to take a short break and we'll come back to it.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant, Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Okay, so this is the governor versus reality. Now, the governor spent several terms in the legislature. She quit halfway through her last term because she got a better job, of course, but she spent several times in the legislature. She is the governor. She's got a couple of lawyers working for her, but she apparently doesn't understand how a good idea or even a bad idea becomes a law. And I'm going to show you just how far out in left field left field, yeah. Oh, that's who, right? Left field?
I don't know. Catcher.
That's our shortstop.
Shortstop.
Yeah. So there's an article in the Post, Saturday's Post, Governor, $10 million war claim plan takes effect. And I'll read some of the article, and then I'll show you how wrong it is. And compliment yourself, because there are times when only tailgaters really understand the legal ramifications of what goes on this island. I refer you back to the, quote, lawsuit that the Attorney General filed on procurement of the hotels, which wasn't a lawsuit. I explained to you what it was. It was just, a way to put whipped cream on the failures of the government of Governor Leon Guerrero, where the Attorney General sued 4 contracts. All 4 of the media outlets just took the press release from the Attorney General, ran it, didn't take the time to find out what was really going on, and apparently the same thing here. So Leon Guerrero is quoted, "My administration is taking action immediately." Wait a minute. The administration plans to pay $10 million to World War II reparations claimants who missed a prior deadline is being executed now. My quote, "My administration is taking action immediately to execute this program in order to prioritize the payment of war claims to our greatest generation." The governor gave the signal after a 30-day window for lawmakers to adopt, reject, or alter the administration's plan resulted in no action from the legislature. The executive branch will assist claimants in filling out the application and its requisite documents, according to the governor. The Department of Administration will soon begin providing the application forms to the public ahead of the filing deadline that will be decided soon by the Adjudication Committee, etc. The governor appointed Joseph D. Francis as a member of the general public to the Adjudication Committee, which will be meeting soon. The governor and the legislature will each have a designee to the committee, all in the name of separation of powers. I'll get to that too. The appropriation for the program is now the final piece. As identified in the plan, $10 million is still needed. The executive branch will do everything in its power to execute this program and expeditiously process all claims once certified by the Adjudication Committee. I look forward to working closely with you in the months ahead to appropriate the necessary funding for the ultimate distribution of payments, the governor wrote. Friday marked the deadline for the Guam legislature to act on the governor's war claim implementation plan based on the date Senator Joe San Augustine provided before the start of the new year. The plan is a mandate of Public Law 3662. The intent is to pay war claims to claimants who miss the deadline for the federal war claims measure. Speaker Therese Terlahi stated the plan proposed by the governor potentially exceeds the parameters for war claims programs set forth in Public Law 3662. It's unclear exactly what those parameters are, but there was a concern about the plan's funding source during public hearing. A bill will need to pass to amend Public Law 3662, the Speaker said. I expect that the amended Bill 230-36 will be reported out of the Committee on Appropriations in time to be prioritized on January 21 session for the legislature to properly act on any necessary changes to existing law without causing a delay. The 30-day prime frame the Speaker is referring to is the notice period in the government's implementation plan, which gives an adjudication committee 30 days to file a deadline notice for claims. And then the rest of it is stuff you already know. So here's where we are. Public Law 36-62 said that the legislature, that the governor is to come up with a plan. Okay, I'll come back to this right after the big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A tragic Sunday morning fire disaster in New York City. I'm Sal Giangrasso, Fox News. 19 people, including 9 children, are dead after a malfunctioning space heater sparked a fire that filled a Bronx apartment building with thick smoke.
This fire began in an apartment that spans 2 floors on the 2nd and 3rd floor of the building. It started in a malfunctioning electric space heater. That was the cause of the fire.
That's New York City Fire Commissioner Daniel Nigro. 13 people remain hospitalized in critical condition, and more than 5 people were hurt. Most of the victims had severe smoke inhalation. This woman lives in the building with her children.
There was a lot of kids crying, help, help, help. Yeah.
You heard kids saying help, help, help?
And yeah, from my window, we couldn't breathe.
That's Delaney Rodriguez. Chicago schools canceled classes for a 4th day Monday as the impasse continues with the teachers' union over COVID-19 precautions. A top Russian diplomat predicts difficult talks with the United States this week after attending a working dinner with U.S. officials in Geneva on Sunday, part of the kickoff to a string of meetings in 3 European cities this week, with relations at a low over Russia's military buildup near Ukraine. 2 men who brought laughter via the TV screen died Sunday. Bob Saget, who was found dead in an Orlando hotel room, was 65. Saget's best known for his role as Danny Tanner on Full House, as well as the first host of America's Funniest Home Videos. And Dwayne Hickman, who played Dobie Gillis and went on to be a TV executive, dead at age 87 in Los Angeles from complications of Parkinson's disease. The NFL playoff picture is coming into sharper focus. The Las Vegas Raiders beat the Los Angeles Chargers, so the Raiders and Pittsburgh Steelers go to the playoffs. The Chargers were eliminated. America is listening to Fox News.
Happy
Happy day. This is Clara Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
California takes a bold step trying to make sure there are enough healthcare workers to treat COVID patients.
On Saturday, the California Department of Public Health issued new guidance allowing hospitals and health networks to force COVID-19 positive healthcare workers to continue working if they're asymptomatic. The guidance indicates the measure should be used only as a last resort to deal with staffing shortages, and that the COVID-19 positive workers will have to wear mandatory N95 masks and should only interact with COVID patients if possible. The guidance will remain in place until February the 1st in order to help deal with the Omicron surge. The healthcare workers union rep said that allowing employers to bring back workers who may still be infectious is one of the worst ideas I have heard during this pandemic. Kevin Uretsky, Fox News.
They weren't televised, but the Golden Globe Awards were given out. Big winners included West Side Story, The Power of the Dog, and Succession. Encanto was named the Best Animated Film. A co-creator and promoter of a legendary music festival has died.
Any talk about 1969's Woodstock Music Festival usually encompasses the acts who showed up, like Jimi Hendrix, Carlos Santana, The Who, and Jefferson Airplane. One name you rarely heard was Michael Lang, who died Saturday at 77 after battling cancer. Michael Lang, along with partners Artie Kornfeld, John Roberts, and Joel Rosenman, put together Woodstock, billed as 3 days of peace and music that drew about 400,000 people to a piece of Bethel, New York land owned by farmer Max Yasgur. Lang, in a 2009 interview, saying that Woodstock helped set the stage for modern music festivals like Bonnaroo and Coachella. Paul Stevens, Fox News.
Roads were flooded and farmland inundated in Washington state as the Pacific Northwest slowly recovers from a series of rain and snowstorms since December 17th. I'm Salchi Grasso, and this is Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
The Eat Fresh Refresh goes on at Subway. You've tried the Cali Fresh steak. Now you can enjoy the Cali Fresh turkey. One of only 2 Cali Fresh subs. The Cali Fresh turkey is packed with belly-thin, oven-roasted turkey piled high on a bed of hickory smoked bacon, smashed avocado, and fresh mozzarella. Crafted for premium freshness, the Cali Fresh turkey is made on freshly baked, hearty, multi-grain bread with your choice of fresh veggies hand-sliced daily in restaurants. Treat yourself to a Cali Fresh turkey today. Subway. Eat fresh.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck, 0 down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at GuamAutospot.com.
Okay, we're going to leave the governor alone for a few minutes here, and we're going to Hollywood. Straight from our, well, wait a minute. Let's do that after the seventh inning stretch. Yeah. Okay, after the seventh inning stretch, we're going to go to Hollywood for Hope Christobel's screen test. Okay, back to the governor. Now, the governor says, that bill that I sent to the legislature is now the law. So I'm going to get cracking on it right away. I made the appointments. I'm doing everything that I knew to do to start getting those payments out. Senator Joe San Augustine, in a Daily News story, said this. Senator Joe San Augustine said an emergency session might be needed to amend the plan by the January 7 deadline. So Public Law 3662 passed on about December 7, and you'll see that there was a 30-day fuse, and at the end of the 30 days, a law would be enacted. That's the theory that the governor's operating on. And Joe San Augustine, when he said, the deadline's it's January 7th. Now, the really easy answer here to this question, or the really easy explanation is this. Bills don't get passed by default in the Guam legislature, or probably any other legislature in the world. Bills don't pass by default. Now, I'm going to read the pertinent section of Public Law 36-62 and explain to you what I think they're doing and what they're actually doing. Here it goes. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, within 30 days of the enactment of the Guam World War II Recognition Act of 2021, Public Law 36-62, the governor shall submit to the legislature an implementation plan, which shall include a proposed funding source for the payment of war claims under Public Law 114-328 to claimants who fail to meet the one-year filing deadline under federal law. Upon submission of the governor's implementation plan, the legislature may adopt, reject, or amend the plan in the form of a bill. Okay, so the original bill said the governor had 30 days to send over, the governor was to submit her plan to pay these war claims in the form of a bill. And 30 days after it landed in the legislature, that's what we're talking about. Now, this last sentence in this section said, if after 30 calendar days the legislature fails to act on the plan as submitted, the plan shall be deemed adopted. Wow. So the plan is deemed adopted.
If there's a plan.
Well, she sent the plan.
Oh, she sent the plan.
Yeah. The bill, Bill 230 said you send a plan in the form of a bill to the legislature. Legislature got it, they introduced it, and then the way the governor is obviously reading it, she's reading this sentence. If after 30 calendar days the legislature fails to act on the plan as submitted, the plan shall be deemed adopted. Well, as I said, you don't pass bills by default. And then, of course, a couple of other problems here. Plan as submitted. Well, when the legislature got it, the committee drew up a substitute bill. I couldn't even find the bill as introduced on the legislature's website because the only thing that's there is the bill is substituted. So does that mean then that come January 7, the bill as submitted becomes law? Forget about the substitute. Well, that's the plain language here, right? And then if you're going to enact a law, do you talk about a plan? I've had, I make plans all the time. I think some of them probably should become laws, but they don't. And then the plan shall be deemed adopted. So the legislature would adopt the plan. Now, what do they do with the plan after they've adopted it? Find a foster home for it or what? And then the word deemed is a word that you want to be really careful about when you're dealing with legal concepts, because the word deemed means this didn't happen. We are engaging in a legal fiction to act as though it did happen. Deemed is a dangerous word. It's a good word to excise from your vocabulary, unless you really know how to use it. So that's what the bill says. So already, I don't get any farther than that. I'm saying, whoa, boy, somebody didn't understand how the legislative process works. So then, at section 13202, implementation of the Guam World War II Reconciliation Act of 2021. Oh, wait a minute, I'm missing a page here. Getting mixed up with my own pages. Then at the article said, well, the appropriation is the next thing. Well, the bill that the legislature substituted, they got the governor's bill, they substituted in committee and came up with this. Section 13303, notwithstanding any other provision of law, the sum of $10 million is appropriated from the general fund to the Department of Administration to pay certified claims to compensable Guam victims and survivors, etc. So there is an appropriation of $10 million in this bill that was introduced, has not been passed. 30 days ran, though, so you can appropriate money by default, right? Well, then I kind of cheated, which is kind of my habit here when these things come up. And I went to the Organic Act to see what the Organic Act says about how a bill becomes law. If you were to look at 48 United States Code, Section 1423B, you'll find the following language. The quorum of the legislature shall consist of a simple majority of its members. No bill shall become a law unless it shall have been passed at a meeting at which a quorum was present by the affirmative vote of a majority of the members present and voting, which vote shall be yeas and nays. That's the only way that a bill passes the legislature. That hasn't happened. So there's a plan for whatever that's worth, but Paul Zerzan could write a plan and send it over to the legislature and say, unless you adopt my plan, unless you reject my plan in 30 days, it's your plan. They have about the same effect. So you just wonder, first of all, you wonder how the legislature could be so misled as to send something like that over to the governor saying that if we don't act on it in 30 days, it's adopted. Maybe that's the reason that Anna Wanpat left. This is really, far out stuff that the legislature could pass a bill. So how does the governor get it? Well, the governor doesn't have to sign it. That's the beauty of it, And then there's another section in the Organic Act that said when the legislature passes a bill, it enters it on its journal, sends it to the governor, and the governor's got 10 days to approve or veto. If she doesn't do something in 10 days, it becomes the law. But that doesn't work here. So you just got to wonder, what silly game are people trying to play with this thing? Because there are people, both newspapers on Saturday ran headlines, war claims to be paid. And it's cruel because there are some people out there thinking, oh boy, we're going to get our money, and you're not any closer to getting your money now than you were before this whole set of shenanigans started. And And it's unfortunate, this is a good example, along with the Attorney General's Kadu lawsuit, of why you can't believe what you read in the newspapers, because they apparently take the governor's press release and let it go at that and figure, well, we got the press release, we can do the story without checking to find out what the law is. Now, I can kind of sympathize with the papers, because what I just gave you here is probably $500 worth. And a newspaper or TV station can't afford to be shucking out big money every time the government does something stupid. If that were the case, there'd be a couple really rich lawyers here on the most sought-after positions, lawyers for the newspapers and TV stations. But that's it. Nothing has happened. There's no deadline. The legislature can take as much time as it wants to with the bill that the governor sent over, which she substituted. If they don't pass it, it doesn't pass. That's it. Now, of course, there's going to be some really high-intensity finger-pointing here, because the governor is going to say, I did exactly what they told me to do. I drafted up that bill and sent it to them. Instead of acting on it, they let it go past the deadline. And now they're making some excuse. Well, there really isn't a deadline because the speaker had her fingers crossed the whole time. Wow. Yeah, we really need a part-time legislature. You don't need to be on duty full-time to do crap like this. It's not necessary. You could go down to Touray on a Saturday morning and find 15 people that could do this kind of work. All right, so much for the governor versus reality, something that escaped her on this war claims thing. Okay, so ti baba inifenho lo upolo no implant gi ipatsoto. So, yeah, but I have teeth. I've got good teeth, and I drafted a bill that is not doffy by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm going to have to send Tim Fedenko off to dental school, I think, to learn a little bit about thecodont-dentition.
Say it again?
Yeah. Thecodont-dentition. That's baby teeth.
Okay. With the TH.
Yeah, TH, thecodont, yeah. All right. So this is something that ran in the Post on Saturday. Every child versus GFT. And the headline is this: adequate education lacks teeth. A classic example of not judging the story by the headline, because they had to go way to the end of the story to pull this out, and it's not really reflective of the story at all. But I'll get there. In recent months, Guam education policy boards have repeatedly raised concern regarding possible lawsuits for failing to meet the 180 instructional days required by law. GOE has been urged to seek a waiver to the mandate, and I've explained there's no such thing as a waiver to the mandate. But even with a waiver from the legislature, GDOE would remain in violation of Public Law 28-45, board members have said. Right, they're right. GEB member Maria Gutierrez previously noted that GDOE and the board were, quote, lucky no parent has decided to sue. Looking at the bigger picture, it's not just DOE, but the entire government that's in violation of the Adequate Education Act, said GDOE Superintendent John Fernandez. Public school students are behind academically by 2 years as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. There are not enough certified teachers to teach each classroom, and teachers have spoken out claiming that some students aren't receiving instruction as a ripple effect of the teacher shortage. Quote, I would say the Adequate Education Act holds the entire government of Guam potentially liable for a failure to provide an adequate public education, Fernandez said. The relief that is allowed under the Act is injunctive, meaning that a court could order the government to do certain things needed to ensure that facilities are maintained and upgraded, that textbooks are provided for each student, that personnel be hired to meet the requirements of the law. And that's exactly correct. The Every Child is Entitled to an Adequate Public Education Act helped to define adequate education. As pointed out by the law's author, former Senator Bob Klitzkie, when he introduced it more than 10 years ago, 2005 as a matter of fact. The Organic Act states that it's the government's duty to provide students with an adequate education. The law requires the government and its various agencies to include financial offices to ensure, among other things, 180 instructional days, having qualified and certified teachers, counselors and administrators, sanitary and safe school and classroom environments, air-conditioned or well-ventilated classrooms. Schools should have potable water, reliable electricity, clean restrooms, and enough textbooks for students and timely transportation for students to and from school. Now, I always have to make this clear. Well, you know, don't we want an excellent education? Of course we do. But the Every Child Act establishes the minimum, the floor. You can't go below that floor. Nothing stops the Department of Education from going above it. Many of these issues continue, but no parent has sued the government for failing to provide an adequate education. It's not really that straightforward and never tested, but I bet if it were tested and a court issued an injunction, it would force more resources to the department for a whole host of things, from facilities to textbooks and personnel, Fernandez said. You know, so often it isn't the lawsuit that gets a result, it's the possibility of a lawsuit. We argued this when we were being cut during the federal tax breaks. Fernandez said, hey, you can't do that, Every Child Act. Now, here we get to NEFEN. As a union, I can't do it myself, said Tim Fedenko, GFT president, in regard to taking action on the violations of the law. By the way, I'm nominating Tim Fedenko for the Tello Taitigui Trophy, but we'll go on. If a parent was to bring that forth, then that would be up to the parent's right in violation of that law, Fedenko said. But suing the government is a very hard process. The law has no teeth. Dofina ilai. Do ileko guahune dofina i GFT. Because, and I explained it on Ratio this morning, and Fernandez gets it. You know, if there were a suit, there could be a lot of positive things coming to the Department of Education. But it's like a bicycle. You could have a beautiful bicycle, a brand new bicycle with all the bells and whistles on it, etc., and you sit on the seat and do nothing, you're going to tip over and fall on your ass. When you get on that bicycle, you got to pedal. It doesn't matter how good the bicycle is. If you don't pedal, you're not going anywhere. The Every Child Act is a wonderful bicycle for those who want to bring about an improvement in education, because it says that any child who is not given a adequate public education has standing to sue any number of different government officials, either for injunctive relief or in a writ procedure. And that goes all the way to the Power Authority, the Water Authority. It's the entire government. But certainly the Department of Education. So if the Department of Education is not providing 180 days of school, they've screwed it up a little bit, but it's still basically what it means, then a suit would lie. And a court could order the department You're going to have to keep going here to comply with the Every Child Act. You got to have 180 days of school. Try Saturdays. Try shortening vacations. Do something. And there was a time when the department took it very seriously, and they had makeup days as part of their vacation schedule. As an example, the day after Thanksgiving was a makeup day. So if you lost a day in the fall, you made it up on the day after Thanksgiving, and so on with the other school vacations. But Fedenko says the law has no teeth. Well, when it comes to teeth, the largest incisors you'll find in any law are the right to sue. The right, to go and pray to somebody to do the right thing or try to persuade them. No, but when you can bring someone to court in an injunctive procedure, that's the sharpest teeth you're going to get out of any law. But you got to understand what you're doing. So when Fedenko says, I can't do it myself, well, you have a couple thousand members, and I suspect a lot of your members, if not most of your members, have children in school. Every one of those children is a potential plaintiff. And I mentioned this, a little historical background on Ray's show this morning. That is that when a handful of us rabble-rousers started up the GFT back in 1965, one of the very first things we did was hire David Shapiro, Esquire. We put him on retainer, $25 a month. Those were the good old days. And in order for PEMRA, the Public Employment Management Relations Act, to go, rules and regulations had to be promulgated. Well, the government dragged its feet, surprise, on the rules and regulations. So we hired Dave Shapiro to bring a writ of mandate against the Director of Administration. And the rules got promulgated. Because the rules were promulgated, we had an election. GFT beat the NEA affiliate, and the election was accorded exclusive recognition. We negotiated the first contract in November of 1970. But had we not brought that suit, we'd still be sitting around saying, well, I'm one person here. I can't do this by myself. Okay, let's take a short break. We're going to go to Wrigley Field for the 7th inning stretch. We're going to go from there straight to Hollywood for Hope Cristobal's screen test.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Toowoomba. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Okay, so here we go at Wrigley Field. Time for the 7th inning stretch. We just got 2 more innings to go, and Red Shirt Monday, Tall Tales. And I promised that we would play Hope Cristobal's screen test today. Hope Cristobal is one of the leading lights of the separatist movement. In fact, you'll hear her bragging about drafting the bill that created the Commission on Decolonization for the Implementation and Exercise of Chamorro Self-Determination, which is gaslighting to the extreme. So Hope is the face and voice of the separatist movement, so highly regarded by the separatist movement that she has been appointed to be the chair of the Chamorro Language Commission, which she uses occasionally in her screen tests here. So we'll run the screen test, and then you can tell me which movie or what kind of movie you think Hope should be cast in other than the movie about separating from the United States. Go ahead, Jose.
Colonizer! You're nothing but a white colonizer. That's who you are. Colonization is the same thing as slow murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are. We need to just do different. We need to do better. Get off my island.
Sir, you need to go. You can't be policing people here and telling people how to protest or what to protest for. You need to go. You need to go. I'm a protest. That's cool, but you cannot be policing people and telling them how to protest and what to advocate for. She has a right to yell.
I'm an indigenous Chamorro. I have more rights here than you are. You came here because of the structures of colonialism, asshole. Tayo mamalaw sige dito ni Tano. Titaw Tano how. Baho bini Tano. Baho bini malahoga. Baho na short na guy gitu bini. Hago tata na short mo bini. You need to leave.
You need to go.
Please.
You need to get out of here.
Please pause this.
Get out of here. When I get a chance, go.
Please, thank you. Thank you, partner. Please leave. No, you think what?
What happened to him?
Oh, he confronted me.
What did he say?
He's telling me I shouldn't be here. I support Black Lives Matter. It's part of the colonialistic systemic racism. And I came here to support these people. He's a white man that has come here. And he continues the legacy of colonialism. He continues to fight people, individuals, my goodness. I'm a former senator. I authored the Commission on Decolonization. Ay, mamalo.
We're proud of you, Auntie.
So just malasi.
He's safe.
Well, there you go.
Did she get the part?
Yeah, I just I'm gone with the wind. No, that's
Big Bag of Wind.
Casablanca.
Oh, Casa is something other color.
Yeah, Casa Atelung. Yeah, so all you tailgaters out there, if you want to kind of chime in and tell us what movie or what kind of movie you think Hope should be in, she's already made something of a name for herself as a separatist. And as you'll notice, she has great screen presence and has a real gift for dialogue. And she doesn't need a battery of writers. She wrote her own script for that screen test. So
she has her own chorus.
She had her own chorus, the responsa there, you need to leave, you need to leave. And actually just leaving the demonstration wasn't enough for Hope. He needed to leave the island because he's nothing but a white colonizer, which means he's a murderer. And he came here because of systemic race. So she's got all of the talking points down. You got to give her that. So she'd have probably no trouble learning the most complicated script so long as it had the right message. So that's the face and voice of the separatist movement on the island. And so far, none of the other leading lights have come out and said, well, we don't adopt everything that Hope said, the part about the murderer, but no one has. So the silence, it's kind of like the legislature in 30 days. You know, you had your chance to come out and say, no, that's not our movement. That's not what we're in favor of. So I guess that's exactly where the separatist movement is coming from. These people who are using the Chamorro self-determination mask to stay on the government payroll, put out stuff like their 20-page supplement on December 6th, et cetera, and continue to preach the separatist rhetoric. Okay, so much for that. We'll pay it again next Monday. There are probably some people that haven't been tuned in at the right time to see it. So we'll play it right after the seventh inning stretch next Monday. If you got friends that you want to give a heads up to, tell them Tall Tales right after the seventh inning stretch. Okay, so back to Neef Tim here in the EFT. Yeah. Maybe we get in touch with the tooth fairy. I wonder if what's his name? Mike, mypillow.com. What's his last name?
Lindell?
Yeah, Mike Lindell. I wonder if he gets a cut of the teeth that go under the pillow, under his My Pillows, right? Okay, as a union, I can't do it myself, said Tim Fedenko. Learned helplessness. I can't do it myself. It's a great tool, but I can't do it myself. So he could go down and talk with Tello Taitigui, and they could commiserate with one another together as to why they can't do anything to make a difference. If a parent was to bring that forth, then that would be up to the parent's right in violation of that law, Fedenko said. But we're not going to support that parent. And then, of course, not the skeptical side of me, but the cynical side of me says, the last thing that these guys would want is to have to make up the missed days of school. Why sue when we might win? Better to let that sleeping dog lie in the name of the kids. And then Friday, I read an article about how the principals had a lot of good reasons not to make up for the good of the children, actually.
What's that one joke where someone's in bed and says, I don't want to go to school. The teacher always yell at me. The kids make fun of me. But you have to go to school. Why? Because you're the principal.
I like it. It's just the principle of the thing, Jose, right? Yeah, if a parent was to bring that forth, then that would be up to the parent's right in violation of the law. But suing the government is a very hard process. The law has no teeth. Fedenko thinks it may be beneficial to revisit and strengthen the law. Well, if that's what you think, what you should do, Tim Fedenko, you should be over there lobbying Tello to amend the law to allow any labor organization that is an exclusive bargaining agent in the government to bring suit under the act. Then you would be able to do it by yourself. But that would take some effort. Usually when you put funding behind a law, like if you don't have certified teachers, you lose money. That'd be one way to do it legislatively. Now, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? The Department of Education is 100 teachers short. So we're going to cut their budget by several $1,000s to punish them. Who are you punishing?
Makes sense.
Yeah. Teacher shortage, federal tax cuts, and local budget cuts over the years were contributing factors to the shrinking annual budget, which then lends to an inability to hire more teachers and support staff needed at schools. But, you know, if you had an aggressive, militant teachers union that brought these suits, even Tello would sooner or later figure out we got to pay teachers more money so that we don't have a teacher shortage to avoid this litigation. That's the point behind the legislation. For people that can read, I don't know, maybe I don't know what grade Tim teaches. Maybe he hadn't gotten to reading yet in his classes.
They're still bottle fed.
During a recent roundtable hearing, a teacher testified that some students at Southern High were herded to the gym as these classes have no teacher. Well, there you go. There's your suit right there. DOE has been plagued with a teacher shortage for decades. Prior to the pandemic, retired teachers were brought back to fill in the gaps. That changed with the pandemic as retired teachers have been reluctant to risk catching the virus. GDOE last reported approximately 70 vacant teacher positions and about 30 teachers on leave for military deployment. Fedenko stressed the root of the problem must also be addressed: teacher recruitment, retention, and pay. Well, I think I just answered that question for you, Tim. Legislatively, they should increase the pay for teachers so they can hire more teachers. Teachers don't want to teach on Guam because we are one of the lowest paid teachers in the nation. The law exists to set minimum requirements. We do our best to comply with the law and to request the resources we believe are necessary to comply. It's a priority for us to have certified teachers in every classroom. Unfortunately, in our district and many others across the country, there's a shortage of certified teachers. So I'm going to go out and I got a dentist friend, and I'm going to call him up and price a pair of dentures. And if they're not too expensive, I'm going to gift wrap them and send them off to Tim. The law has no teeth. All right. Okay.
Man Bites Act.
Yeah, right. Okay, I've got Friedman versus illness next on my card here. I noticed somebody trying to get in from the green room. Oops. And that would be another Joe. Teacher shortage. Another Joe, you know the only reason we have a teacher shortage?
No, sir. Why?
It's because we don't have enough teachers. If it weren't for that, we'd be fine.
I would think it has to do with the budget.
Well, we could both be right on that one. Go ahead, another Joe.
Okay, well, Uncle Bob. So, in the meantime, while they're attempting to solve their budget issue, where they can't hire more teachers, what if they were to? Do they have their required number of what they call? I'm not sure the title's PAP pros or substitute teachers. I know there's two different titles there, but they assist teachers, I think.
What are you talking about?
They used to call them PAP pros or teaching assistants, I think.
DAP pros?
PAP pros?
Parapros. Parapros. Yeah. Parapros were sort of like the school police.
These are people probably herding the students into the gym, as you said earlier.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So if they're going to herd them into the gym, why don't they start investing in the technology, the computers or the big screen, they have like a Zoom conference, and have maybe one teacher teach multiple classes, possibly at multiple schools, the same class it is, whether it be English, math, science, social studies, whatever it is that the subject that they're missing, and have it the same curriculum, teaching a plan for that particular class and that particular day, and they would have like a syllabus like they do in college, and say, okay, here is what's required while we're missing a teacher for you. You have to study this. You give them out maybe some material, I don't know, printed material, and they could probably even get it online, and they'll submit their homework to the parapros, and possibly some, if they have any substitute teachers, and then that grade would be, find a way to grade them. I don't know that they have to be the certified teacher to grade. That's probably where I'm missing the point. I'm not an expert on.
Another Joe. We did this back in the '60s. We tried this back in the '60s. We brought out a guy who was an expert on. There was even a fancy name for it, but we were going to install TV sets in every classroom, and we're going to have our own TV station, and we're going to broadcast a lot of the instruction on these TV sets. American Samoa pioneered it, and they had a big tower up in one of the mountains in Pongo Pongo. But it never really worked very well. I even applied for a job as a television teacher, but a lady named Maud Johnson got the job instead of me. Yeah.
This was to be implemented nationwide, or
no, just on the island here. It was a trend in the mainland. Other places had tried it, but it never worked out very well.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You might be right there. Unless the you said it was the 70s?
60s. And what it morphed into was KGTF. That was the basis for this television education program. The station that was built for that morphed into KGTF.
Good background knowledge there. But I don't know. Maybe I'm too optimistic about, because of the technology with online internet and Zoom conferencing. Anyway,
I'm going to ask you a personal question here that you don't have to answer if you don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you go to the dentist, another Joe?
The dentist. I obviously I'm a little bit slow on what I just said. Obviously, I walked into that. I'm one of those guys that doesn't know that they're impaired in some way, so to speak. I forgot what was the title for them.
Maybe a little gullible. When someone is, I think the modern word is pimping. I was pimping you, but in a different use of the word pimp than we ordinarily understand it. Because if you go to the dentist often enough, you've probably got good teeth, and that is the absolute essential for any program. It's got to have teeth, right?
Just like the guy that says he couldn't make stuff happen, but because the legislation doesn't have teeth to it or something.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's got to have teeth. Yeah.
Hey, Uncle Bob, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Good talking to you, another Joe. Let's head for Churchill Downs. Saying farewell to another Joe and heading for Churchill Downs.
You know what? Just real quick, the students are chomping at the bit.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jose. I've been a proponent of good dental health all my life. I have been heard to say that a man's got to be true to his teeth, or they'll be false to him. My teeth are like the stars; they come out at night.
Very good.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. I got just about two furlongs more, and my race will be over for another Red Shirt Monday. So I'm going to wind up with Dr. Friedman. You know, the thing about Dr. Friedman is he's so soft. You know, he's just like Tim Fedenko. You know, what can he do? You know, he's always looking around for ways to not do something. Actually, no. Friedman is very direct. He never pulls his punches. I don't think he has anything in his house that's red. It's all orange. It's just the facts, no narrative from him.
Nothing wood in here.
And that's right. And he writes a very pointed column, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some backlash out of it. And he starts out with Pogo. Unfortunately, very few people are old enough to remember the comic strip Pogo, which was about an opossum and politics. It was really, really clever. And Pogo's famous line was, "We have met the enemy, and he is us." And that's how Friedman starts his column. Pogo, 1970. When I came to Guam 17 years ago, I was well aware of the metabolic syndrome in medicine, but I have since been amazed at its more modern and increasing prevalence, especially on Guam. Metabolic syndrome is a constellation of conditions that usually occur together caused by obesity, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, elevated levels of bad cholesterol and lipids with low levels of good cholesterol, high levels of uric acid, and abdominal fat. Those conditions tremendously increase one's risk of other diseases, heart attack and heart failure, stroke, kidney failure, blindness, dementia, gout, fatty liver with cirrhosis, liver failure, as well as many cancers, and chronic leftism. In fact, metabolic syndrome, when combined with cigarette smoking, constitutes the two main lifestyles that are worst behaviors one can choose to lead a life of chronic illness and seriously shorten one's lifespan. But of course, for the thinking man to say, well, that'll shorten your lifespan, he'll come back and tell you, yeah, but the shortening is only going to happen at the end. So why should I be concerned about it? To add to this litany of pathology, Wuhan virus serious infections and death are most prevalent among patients with metabolic syndrome, comorbidities. Obesity, the generator of metabolic syndrome, is a worldwide epidemic. But why is metabolic syndrome so much more prevalent on Guam? Now, here's the part that some people aren't going to like. Unfortunately, Pacific Islanders have been dealt a poor genetic hand when it comes to the ills of modern living. I was formally involved in research that showed that Asians were much more susceptible to MS, to metabolic syndrome, when they acquire at a much lower level of obesity than people of either European or African ancestry, another form of white supremacy. And Pacific Islanders are more susceptible to this effect. In fact, the most susceptible of all races studied, Pacific Islanders. Couple that with a very unhealthy modern Chamorro diet. Very unhealthy modern Chamorro diet.
Only those on Guam, though.
Yeah, where is, what's her name? Therese Padua, how? When she reads that. Lucky for Friedman, it's not in the Daily News, it's in the Post. The modern Chamorro diet, heavy in calories of meats, sugars, starches, and fats, and the answer starts to appear as to why metabolic syndrome is an especially modern Guam epidemic. Some Guamanians seem to take pride in the fact that Guam has the highest intake per capita of Spam and Budweiser. I frequently try to explain to patients the genesis of metabolic syndrome by comparing their lifestyle to that of their grandparents who grew or caught most of their food with a very different diet, primarily vegetable, fruit, and fish, to their own mainly sedentary lifestyle and diet as above, and it becomes obvious. So the medical evils of the modern world are magnified on Guam with the majority of the adult population having at least one or more chronic illness due to lifestyle choices. I would also estimate that at least 60% or 75% of cancers on Guam are due to lifestyle choices. No. We got to blame that on Agent Orange and the downwinder effect, etc. We can't take responsibility for that. The combination of smoking and metabolic syndrome are responsible for the large majority of cancers of endometrium, head and neck, esophagus, pancreas, colon, rectum, lung, kidney, liver, breast, and bladder. Add to that the diseases described above caused by metabolic syndrome and smoking, and I believe the majority of the chronic diseases on Guam are covered. Well, we can keep listening to our effete government officials who try to obfuscate the medical problems on Guam by blaming the lack of local super specialist doctors, poorly run health systems, and other placebos that do not reflect reality or take a good look in the mirror. My alma mater had the motto, tuum est. It's up to you. That is, take charge and improve your own lifestyle and health, and faulty belief that either the government or medical science is going to have some magical pill to cure diseases that are self-induced. Would this not be a better description for Guam than OOG? Right on, Dr. Friedman. Well, we wrapped up a Red Shirt Monday. We're going to be back tomorrow at 1600 with another exciting educational episode of the greatest show, afternoon radio show on Guam, Tall Tales. We'll see you then. Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Some serious talking set to get underway in Europe. I'm Salji Ingrasso, Fox News. As Russian troops mass on Ukraine's borders, the U.S. will take part in global conversations hoping to avoid an invasion.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken says there are two paths Russia can take: enter into diplomacy or face deterrence. On ABC's This Week, Blinken said those deterrents lean heavily on more sanctions.
Economic, financial, and other consequences, as well as NATO almost certainly having to reinforce its positions on its eastern flank near Russia, as well as continuing to provide defensive assistance to Ukraine.
Blinken says it's hoped that discussions taking place starting Monday in Geneva can calm those tensions. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
It's the city's deadliest fire in 3 decades. New York City fire officials say a malfunctioning space heater sparked the fire that filled a high-rise Bronx apartment building with smoke, killing at least 19 people, including 9 children.
As 32 people were transported with life-threatening injuries, predominantly smoke. What happened here was, although I said there were two floors of fire, but the smoke spread throughout 19 stories of the building.
Fire Commissioner Daniel Nigro said firefighters found victims on every floor, many in cardiac and respiratory arrest. Novak Djokovic wins in court, and we ain't talking tennis. An Australian judge has reinstated Djokovic's visa, which was canceled last week because he is unvaccinated. The Australian judge also ordered the government on Monday to release Djokovic from Melbourne hotel quarantine within 30 minutes of his decision. Chicago schools closed again Monday as a standoff continues between the Chicago Teachers Union and city officials regarding a return to the classroom amid an uptick in COVID-19 cases. America is listening to Fox News.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
I'm Ben Domenech, publisher of The Federalist, and I'm inviting you to join a new conversation with the smartest thinkers out there about the country and where we're going. It's the Ben Domenech Podcast. You can subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, FoxNewsPodcast.com, or wherever you download your podcasts. This new show will feature deep dive interviews with newsmakers and some of your favorite Fox News analysts. I hope you'll join me. Subscribe to the Ben Domenech Podcast.
Subscribe and listen now by going to FoxNewsPodcasts.com.
A Supreme Court decision is expected soon on Biden administration vaccine mandates being imposed on companies and healthcare workers.
And here are different takes from two Supreme Court justices on the value of vaccines.
We know that the best way to prevent spread is for people to get vaccinated.
As I remember in the filings, that the that the younger workers, the 20-year-olds who are unvaccinated, are actually safer than the older workers who aren't vaccinated. So there are obviously some differences.
The Washington Post fact checker giving Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor 4 Pinocchios, that's the most he can give, saying she went, quote, off the rails. She said we have over 100,000 children, which we have never had before, in serious condition, and many on ventilators. The Post later called her estimate wildly inaccurate.
That's Fox's Lucas Tomlinson. This comes as vaccine mandates are being enforced in some areas as the country sees a surge in COVID-19 cases. Actor Alec Baldwin takes to Instagram to shut down rumors that he's not complying with authorities after a warrant was issued for his cell phone after the actor accidentally fired a gun that left his co-worker dead on the set of the upcoming film Rust.
The search warrant out of New Mexico was issued 3 weeks ago for Baldwin's cell phone. Detectives say it could help with this investigation, but Baldwin has not turned his phone in yet. So the Santa Fe DA's office has reached out to authorities in Suffolk County, New York, where Baldwin has a home, for legal assistance on this. Baldwin justified the situation on Instagram.
Fox's Christina Coleman. A Major League Baseball first, the New York Yankees are promoting Rachel Balkovec to manager of the low-A Tampa Tarpons, making her the first woman to skipper a team affiliated with Major League Baseball. That's according to two people familiar with the move. I'm Sal Giangrasso. This is Fox News.
Howdy and Happy New Year! KFC's Colonel Sanders here. KFC's Fill-Up Buckets are back for the new year. Fill up with a 10-piece original recipe drum and thigh bucket with 2 large red rice for only $20. Or fill up with 2 KFC buckets, 8 pieces of original drums and thighs, and 12 crispy chicken strips with 2 large red rice for only $30. Fill up with more KFC for less money this January. KFC, it's finger-licking good.
Take a pause.
With a salute to one of the greatest animal advocates ever, Betty White.
I mean, I was the one who thought up big squeaky toys for cows.
The late Golden Girl, known for her work to benefit the animal health charity, the Morris Foundation, and as protector of primates, she was working with the Jane Goodall Institute.
Did you know that humans and chimpanzees share almost 98% of the same DNA? That means chimps are more like us than, say, some of the men I've dated.
She helped promote the Los Angeles Zoo, where they're soon going to be holding a Betty White Day. She was also named an honorary zookeeper. Now, you may have heard there's a viral challenge on social media aimed at honoring White's love for helping animals. The idea is that on January 17th, which would have been her 100th birthday, people should donate $5 to an animal shelter. Some shelters say they've already gotten thousands of dollars from the challenge. Take pause. Jill Nato, Fox News.
Guam's hottest talkers in the best of the stateside networks. Plus, Fox News Live 24/7. Only on KUSG Hagåtña. This is The Point.